Now, the same type of equipping kids with predictability, the example of transitioning the kid from something fun, that's a micro way of doing it. And it's a way in which you do it moment to moment and day to day, something that occurs, which builds the habit. But you want to apply the same concept in macro ways as well. And this is why it's very important to understand some basic things about child development, especially in the K through 12 ages, and especially related to peer pressure, because peer pressure is not something that just turns on one day in kids and is there where it was before. It's something that builds up incrementally, just like anything else. So, it's around ages 9 or 10 that kids start to first develop the concept in their minds, and where their abstract thinking has developed a little bit more, to where they start making considerations over what their peers think about them versus what adults think about them, especially teachers and parents. And especially thinking about in a way where they might start to want to prefer or experiment with doing something for the sake of what other kids think about them. Some kids might be ages a little earlier than that. And generally, when it comes to things with abstract thinking, in general, not always, but girls will develop it a little sooner than boys. So fourth and fifth grade is when you start to see kids who will challenge the teacher a little bit more, or challenge adults in the school building a little bit more. And specifically doing it in a way to get the attention of peers. A kid under fourth grade, especially under third grade, who's somewhat defiant in school, if they don't have a disorder rooted in something from their early childhood, it's most likely just an issue of impulse control for that kid. It's not that they're like trying to be defiant, but when you get into 9th and 10th grade, you'll start to get kids who intentionally are a little defiant. They experiment with doing things that are defiant towards adults for the sake of attention of their peers. Complaining about fairness is a big thing, and they will have an increased sense of fairness and unfairness, though it's still completely self-centered at that age. But they'll feel their social reward a lot in complaining to teachers, parents, and coaches about something not being fair. And you'll hear kids that age all the time say things aren't fair. So that's just an example. And then from there, this dynamic of caring what peers think over, in disregard to what adults think, that dynamic kind of only intensifies up to about age 14, 15. When you get to age 15, 16, that dynamic is still there, but around age 15, 16, kids start to develop the ability to actually make connections with adults who aren't their parents that they might really value, actually. So it starts to wane a little bit around that age. But this is a type of macro thing that you want to prepare kids to experience this before they get to those ages. So when they're 7 and 8 and you're sitting around at the dinner table, it's not something you'll talk about every day. But having that routine of having dinner every day tends to have ways of bringing these conversations out. Just if you talk about your own life experience and doing the things of trying to talk to them about their school day, which is a whole other skill in itself that I'll talk about in another video, because you don't want to just ask the kid, what'd you learn in school today? There's other ways to do it. But in those conversations that you have as a family and talking to your kids, when it comes to age 7 or 8, you want to at some point talk to them more than once about how, once you get to 4th, 5th grade, you're going to start seeing kids misbehaving a little more. You're going to start feeling within yourself that you start to really care about what other kids think. You're going to see kids complain a lot about what's not fair, but they aren't considering what other people think, or they're not in the adult position to consider the whole situation. You want to start explaining these dynamics out of what they're going to go through at the next phase in life before they get there. The transition from elementary to middle school is a big one with that, because things get very socially intense in middle school with this dynamic we're talking about. And it's definitely where kids will, it's somewhat the structure of middle school too that facilitates this. They'll start to have room to experiment with more taboo things and this type of thing that they know adults don't want them to be talking about and doing, or whatever, this type of thing. If a kid is confronted with these things and they're totally unprepared for it, and it wasn't predictable for them at all, they will become emotionally overwhelmed with it in different ways. And when they're emotionally overwhelmed with something, they're not going to react and interact with it in a way that is responsible, healthy, and well reasoned out. So they need help with this. And making things more predictable for kids, it's not something that like makes life so easy for them that they never have challenges in life. That's not what we're talking about here. And we're not talking about an overprotection type thing where they don't face challenges. They're going to face challenges. They're going to face challenges. There's no doubt about it. But it's a question of, at what level, what emotional level are they dealing with those challenges when they get to them? Are they dealing with them in a way where they're going to be completely overwhelmed and it's going to put them on a downward cycle, or a cycle that emotionally and psychologically isolates them from you more as their parent? Or are they going to deal with it in a way where they have enough emotional strength and sense of responsibility to deal with it in a way where they get empowerment, or at least have a sense of getting empowerment from dealing with it responsibly? And with all this stuff, you want to be there to help coach them through it. And two, this idea of making things predictable in the macro way. And you'll never do it perfectly, because the way the specifics of how they experience things, it won't be exactly the same as what you experienced as a kid, but the general frame of it is similar. When they start to see those things that you as the parent told them were going to happen, this is what starts to give them confidence that you are the person to go to now to get advice for these situations. And this is what mitigates against the isolation from parents that teenagers start to go through, especially. The seeds for it were planted at the younger ages, actually, by having these consistent routines and this preparation predictability. Now, and I've already had some people reach out to me about these types of things. For parents who have kids in adolescence or whatever ages, and things have gone wrong based on what I've said, how do you start to undo something that has gone wrong? That's something that I will get to. But understanding these foundations that you want laid in from the beginning, that is essential to understanding. That is also essential to starting to turn around the problems that exist when you have the problems. And it's a hard process in the beginning, but down the road I will talk about that, inshallah.